somewhere between 40 and 30% along the middle there, along the 101 corridor. So again, mostly cooler and moister today. Winds today will be generally out of the west along the ridge tops again, and fairly light, looking for 3 to 5 miles per hour, maybe a few gusts to 10 in the afternoon. And all the other winds upslope, up canyon, pretty much along the entire area, along the eastern half, a little gustier because of the warmer temperatures. One thing, though, I did want to mention for those of you that are going to be working, or for the crews that are going to be out here on the west half, a lot of times what we'll get when we have those marine clouds, the fog and the stratus, right along the boundary between the clear air and that clouds, it gets pretty gusty. And so that's something to be aware of when you're out there, and to look for that as it either moves off to the west or starts to come in the evening, moving eastward. It can get very windy right along that boundary.
Good morning. First off, I want to talk a little bit about history. We at the end of the heat wave right there, the Boonville Raws, which is on the western part of the county right here, in the influence of the coastal valleys, it reached a record of for energy release components. When we looked at the historical data from 1996 till 2001, looking for it from May 31st or from May 1st to September 31st during the peak of our fire season, the ERCs for that day reached an all-time record. So pretty impressive in terms of what the potential fire behavior could have been. And what that means also is our larger fuels are still really bone dry. And so what's going to happen is our larger fuels are going to continue to burn out, and it's going to take a little while for the time lag for those larger fuels to wet up. In the meantime, the fine fuels are going to moisten up really quickly, and those fine fuels are what carries the fire. And so what that's going to do is, as these RHs come up during the day, on the coast real high, and on the inlands right here up to about 35%, what happens is that, number one, the probability of ignitions is going to also go down. Here on the coast, the probability of ignition is going to be about 40%. That's going to be below the threshold of where we think spotting is significant. Interior is going to be around 66%, so it's just above. But overall spotting that we've seen in the past, the last couple days, have been a big issue. It's going to become much less of an issue. Also, we're going to have a lot less problems with torching. We've seen torching really pretty active when the RHs have gotten below 25%. That's not going to happen. And so those are some of the things to think about. On the coast, due to the higher RHs, we're going to see a lot less fire activity in the interior islands. And we're going to have really good RH recovery at nighttime, so we should see this fire start to lay down at nighttime. In the interior, once again, I talked about the spotting being just above the threshold. The burning period is going to shorten up. Burning period is going to be basically from 2 o'clock to 6 o'clock during the day. I expect the most active fire to be on the southwest aspects late in the day. In terms of firing operations, if we're going to be thinking about firing operations during the nighttime, you may have difficulty, say past 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, getting any kind of ignition. Or if you do get ignition, you may get a very incomplete burn that may not work for you. In terms of air operations over the majority of the fire is going to be fairly poor before noon, and in the afternoon it should be fair to good due to smoke. It may take a little bit longer for afternoon for the fog to totally leave the coast. In terms of safety, I just talked about a fairly benign fire behavior. One thing to remember, and that is that heat wave. All those fuels, except for the fine fuels, are really dry. And the one thing that trumps everything is wind. And we haven't had any wind. But if we were to get winds of, say, eye-level winds, 7 to 8 miles an hour, then I would expect torching, I expect big runs, I expect really extreme fire behavior. So the one thing that everyone needs to be caveat to, and that is if we get any kind of wind whatsoever, this humidity will mean nothing. This fire will get up and start running. It's going to take a while for this humidity to really take effect on all the fuels. So have a safe day. Thank you.
Morning. Once again, we're